This is how you come down. Alright, here we go. I have day one travel home is knocked off, so I'm safe for the night. Made it through the blizzard. Of course, it's a blizzard at Pine Pass, the nastiest piece of road. And there was a blizzard there on my way up, but I had to do it in the dark. But so I threw the GoPro on the dash and let it rip, so you guys can watch the road trip while I get some new voices heard. Can't wait to get home. I miss Sarah, I miss the house. My poor little doggy. It's funny being a dog owner. Excuse me, poor Ruby. Like, she's my dog. She chose me as her person. And Sarah said that every single morning she gets up, comes in the bedroom, goes to my side of the bed and looks for me. I'm not there. Then she goes around to Sarah's side of the bed and says hi. And then in the morning, Sarah goes out and hits the living room for morning coffee, and every single morning Ruby goes over to where I sit, looks for me, sees I'm not there, and then goes over to Sarah. It's kind of funny. You feel guilty. Like, the poor thing, you don't know, you can't tell them that you're coming back. Like, does she think I'm dead? Do you know what I mean? Does she know I'm coming back? Does she think I deserted her, my dog? And then when I got Sarah to put the phone by her, she was laying on the floor there, and I said, put the phone by her head, don't say anything. And then started calling her, and I always call her Bub. I go, Bobby, what are you doing? Then all of a sudden you can hear her tail thumping on the floor, thump, 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 thump. Like, what are you doing, Bubs? And then all of a sudden Sarah goes, oh my God, she just jumped up and jumped in the couch. She's staring out out the window, whimpering. I'm like, oh shit, that sucks, poor thing. The poor thing is crazy. It's just so crazy, the bond between a dog and their owner, isn't it? I don't even know if you call them. It's kind of weird to call her I'm her owner. I don't own her. I guide her, I keep her safe. My little partner, right? Poor little thing. But the excitement that they display when you come home is off the frickin' chart. It is absolutely amazing to see that excitement from an animal when you come home, isn't it? It's crazy. That should be, hopefully that'll go down tomorrow night. We'll see how I make out. Actually get to sleep in tomorrow, maybe, for a little bit. I hope. Woke up at 2, and then I woke up at 4, and then I woke up at 5 last night. Don't know why. Anyway, here we go. Sarah's really excited that her cookbook got launched too. I think I shared that already. I'll share it again at the end of this video. And this email to us, to you, through me, is titled Another Story for Your Collection. Hi Steve, I want to start out by saying that I really enjoy your videos and love your general outlook and approach on everything. Keep up the good work. Appreciate those kind words, sir. A little backstory on me. I grew up in a hunting family in Arizona and have spent more time outdoors than most, although not as much as you have. My uncle was a big game guide my whole life and taught me a lot about hunting, fishing, and just being outdoors as a whole. My experience took place in October of 2000 in northern Arizona while on a camping/squirrel hunting trip. Me and a friend of mine, who I will call Dan, had driven up north early on Saturday morning from Tempe, Arizona to go camping and do some squirrel hunting. We got to our spot at about 7 in the morning, got our .22 rifles out and started hunting right away. It was a nice day out, and we had a good time shooting squirrels and talking shit to each other like friends do. That night after dinner and a few beers, we turned in at about midnight. Since we were only staying for one night, our camp was pretty basic. Dan was sleeping next to the fire, and I was sleeping in the bed of his truck. And at about 3 a.m., something woke me up out of a dead sleep, but I wasn't sure what it was. I sat up, looked around, and everything seemed fine. I looked over the side of the truck bed, and Dan was sound asleep next to the low burning fire, so I just figured a log had popped or something and laid back down. And as soon as I shut my eyes, I heard the loudest scream/roar I've ever heard. It was so loud I could feel it in my chest, like standing in front of a speaker playing music real loud, and sat back up. It was coming from about 100 yards out and to my left. And like I said, I grew up in a hunting family, so I instantly started running through all the animal sounds in my head, mentally checking them off one by one. Then it sounded off again, still to my left, but a bit further to the right than before. Whatever was making this noise wasn't any animal I had ever heard of, and it was moving pretty fast through some rough terrain, dense with trees and underbrush, because it sounded off again, still about 100 yards out, but now straight out from me, and it had only been less than 2 minutes since I heard the first scream. It almost sounded like a person yelling, but at the same time completely different. It would start out low, go up in volume, peak, then come back down with each scream/roar lasting about 15 seconds, and no way any human has lungs big enough to be that loud. I looked over the side of the truck bed and again and was shocked to see Dan still sleeping. Then it sounded off again, now a little to my right, so it was steadily moving off to the east, still about 100 yards out. And at this point I laid back down, still wondering what it could be, but figured I had a .357 in my sleeping bag, so what's the worst that could happen? And fell asleep listening to the screams in the distance. And at the time, there wasn't a bunch of morons running around on TV squatching, so Sasquatch never crossed my mind at all. Next morning, I asked Dan if he had heard anything during the night. When he said no, I asked how he could have slept through something so loud, and told him what I had heard. He kind of laughed and said it was just a mountain lion screaming. I said no, it for sure was not a mountain lion screaming, and we finished packing up and went home. One thing I should mention is about 3 weeks prior to this trip, I'd gone camping in this same spot with my wife while I was setting up camp. While I was setting up camp, I looked over and she was standing at the edge of the camp just kind of looking out into the forest. When I asked her what was wrong, her reply was, "There's something not right about this place." I told her I'd camped here several times and reassured her that everything was fine. She said, "I guess," and started getting stuff out of the truck. And that afternoon we were hiking around and I saw a deer skull about 12 feet up the trunk of a ponderosa pine tree. The antlers had been stabbed into the trunk like a nail. Now that sounds impressive. My wife asked me if I had seen anything like that before, and I said no. And that was the end of the hike for her. When I got home, I told her about what I'd heard, and she said, "I told you something was weird about that place." Monday at work, several of the other guys we worked with started right in giving me shit, saying stuff like, "So you saw Bigfoot, huh?" and laughing or calling my phone and making Chewbacca sounds and hanging up. One guy that was an avid hunter and went on a 2-week deer hunting trip with all the men in his family every year came up to me and said, "F those guys, I believe you." A few years ago, my cousin saw something up in the Mogollon Rim when we were out on our family deer trip. It scared him so bad he dropped his rifle, left his Jeep, and ran back to camp. We found him in his tent with a pistol shaking. He wouldn't talk about it other than saying that he thought it was a bear, until he realized he was walking on 2 legs and way too big to be a bear. We had to go out to retrieve his stuff, and now when we go hunting, he won't sleep outside anymore. He gets a hotel in town and drives out to hunt in the morning. I told him that it didn't bother me because we were all dipshits. I told him that it didn't bother me because they were all dipshits, and he laughed, said true, and walked off. Anyway, that's my story. Hope it wasn't too long. And on a side note, I was sorry. Okay, gotcha, man. Gotcha. Appreciate that. Appreciate the email. And that's your story and an added bonus story as well. There you go. Welcome to the club, right? Arizona. I wonder what's more popular. Arizona? Utah? BC? Ontario? Florida? Alabama? Texas? Right, I guess the list goes on for the most popular, doesn't it? California, Oregon, Washington. Squirrel hunting. I got a funny one on that. Quick little mention from the hunting world. I remember we got some guys from West Virginia years ago. Good guys, successful guys, and there's so many of them. They split up in different camps, and I got this guy a record book monster moose, and I got him a huge elk, which turned out it won the buckle for the Northern Guides Association, the biggest bull elk taken in northern BC for the whole out of all the outfits, everybody. So you can imagine it was an incredible hunt, right? And it wasn't his first time to BC either. This particular guy, I think he'd been there a couple times. But anyway, I remember we're sitting around at the end of the hunt. I said to him, I go, so what's your favorite game and what's your favorite hunt in the whole world? And he goes, well, man, don't take me wrong. This is one of the best hunts I ever had in my life. I cannot believe the moose and the elk I got to harvest. But man, I love squirrel hunting. I'm kind of like, huh? You what? Obviously it's going to take me back a little bit. Got this guy who came to the Rocky Mountains of British Columbia and had this crazy epic hunt. The tale of how we got the bulls. There's long stories, but so exciting. And he goes, you know what? I grew up squirrel hunting, and man, I love squirrel hunting. I'm like, no shit. I go, so if you're to die tomorrow, you get to go on one hunt. What are you picking? He goes, oh man, I'm going squirrel hunting. They love it. I got a lot of friends now, since that was a long time ago. I got a lot of friends in the South who love squirrel hunting. They love eating them. I haven't ate one yet. Go figure. I guess I'm gonna have to make sure my friends in the South, Richard, I know you're here. Maybe you were Bragg. We'll go get a couple squirrels. You gotta cook them up for me when next time I'm down. And I'm gonna try my first squirrel. Moving along. Now I came across another email here, and it didn't sound familiar until I got to the bottom, and I recognized the one drawing. And I think it's a significant story, so let's share it for all the newbies, shall we? Hi, I'm from Texas. My name is Andrea, and I came across this story from the site above. Please share and thank you, Steve. Hope all is well. Oh, wait a minute. From the site? I spoke with the witness this week. Took a bit of time to get this up, as there are some touchy details that probably need to be kept private. In 2018, a trucker was driving his double trailer rig near the A1 and Mississippi border. One of his drive tires experienced a blowout, and he pulled to the off-ramp at the next exit. It was after 1 a.m. in the remote area, with little to nothing around. He called his dispatcher, and they had a repair truck on its way. He made himself comfortable. It was a cool night, and he cracked both windows about 3 inches for fresh air. And after about 45 minutes, he could hear crunching on the gravel outside his driver's window. Then something blocked out his rear flashers. His running interior lights were still on, but headlights off. Then he could hear crunching of gravel on the passenger side. And as he watched, a giant face appeared in his passenger side window. It was very well illuminated by all his dash lights, and he's looking at the face of a giant, hairy man. The top of its head was not visible, as it was above the 10-foot roof line. Its eyes are looking at him through the 3-inch gap in the open window. It is not standing on the running boards. And it let out a horrifying, deep, guttural growl that was extremely frightening. It was very deep, and he knew this thing was threatening him. And all he had was a long knife, a kukri, K-U-K-R-I, for protection. He kept it close to his seat at all times. He pulled it out and started nervously telling this thing to move on, or he would hurt it. Remember, this thing approached him and started the standoff. It looked at the knife and let out a roar of immense volume, and with apparently both fists at its side, punched the door. The truck rocked like he'd never felt before. The driver, scared out of his wits, knew he could never start the truck and escape fast enough. Had one option. He reached up and grabbed his air horn rope and pulled it. It was a very loud, open country horn. This thing flinched a little, then let out another roar, followed by another double punch, and rocked the truck, now cracking the glass window. He hit the horn again and brandished the knife, yelling at it, "If it wants to fight, it's going to get hurt in the effort." Our witness is a Desert Storm veteran. It flinches a little more at the second horn blast and takes a half a step back. Again, it roars so loud, it makes the driver's insides vibrate and punches the door, sending the crack in the glass to the other side. The driver blasts the horn one last time, and this thing flinches a third time, then grunts, turns, and walks off into the darkness. When the tire guy gets there, he stands guard of the flashlight with his head on a swivel, never telling the repairman what happened about an hour ago. And here, my friends, is where the touchy parts happen. Our driver contacts his boss the next morning, telling him everything at the truck yard, showing him the 6 huge basketball-sized dents in the passenger door. His boss contacts the insurance company and gives them a non-giant hairy man version of the happenings, fearing they would not pay for damage otherwise. Our driver also contacts a certain Bigfoot organization, excuse me, and the following series of events leaves our driver with a very bad taste in his mouth. The, quote, research organization rep, end quote, tells him he's what's wrong with this field, spreading false information about their aggressiveness. The rep states that they are never reported to be aggressive, then receives a call from his boss stating that 2 men from the insurance company showed up and took the door from the body shop. The body shop thought it was weird too, but complied with hesitation. It took some time convincing the witness I was not part of an organization. There are more stories like this. What you think you know about these creatures is fabricated by the media and the media-controlled personalities. This world is much more amazing than we can imagine. Your time here is yours. Do with it what you wish. I seek truth. All right, there we go. Another trucker parked. Now, here's another one. Here's another one I come up with for me on my little shelf of clues and watching the characteristics. And especially for me, I pay a lot of attention to actions that may be similar to someone who just got here or wasn't familiar with being here that much. Now, I'm going to say it again. Here's another angle. How many times, if you're 9, 10, okay, this guy sounds like he must have been 11 feet tall. You're an 11-foot tall, hairy dude, human, non-human, and you've lived here your whole life. Tell me, how easy is it for you to avoid a truck on the side of the road at a truck stop, especially at night? How easy? Right? And don't tell me the truck stop on the side of the road is invading the home of this hairy dude. It's not. It's not his living room. Right? That truck stop, that highway's been there a long time and is very, very, very easily avoided. So, what's with the curiosity? What made this hairy dude that grew up watching us, watching traffic, watching trucks, avoiding the road, avoiding traffic, probably lesson number 1 from mama when he was a baby boy learning how to run around, right? If that's the case. Born and raised here in the forest. I don't think so. Why would he walk up to that rig in the dark? Why? And stick his face in the window and look in that crack just to see what's in there. What's amazing? What's in there that you haven't seen before? And how many times have these beings approached vehicles in the night to look in the window? Right? Either people sleeping in there, sitting there parking, having a beer, making out, whatever. What is it? You know what I mean? Why the intense interest? You've only grown up knowing to avoid vehicles. You know what's in there. There might be a gun in there, right? Especially with the trucker. Could have been a short and 12 gauge with slugs pointed out that window at that time. Anyway, just something to chew on, you guys. You know what I mean? Just something to chew on. There's just too many similar actions they display for me that leads to them not being here full time. That's all I'm saying. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong with lots of shit, but I got a funny feeling I'm not wrong about that. Who knows? Here we go. Next email. Appreciate that email. Big time. Appreciate that. They're not terrified. They can get into your head and control your awareness, is the title of this next email. To all of you, through me. Hi Steve, I'm watching your latest video on YouTube right now about the predator-like being. You said these things must be terrified of us. Maybe of adults. They're not afraid of kids, but let me tell you what happened to us so many years ago. These things have been around a long time. They're hiding up in the trees. Usually, you'll feel you're being watched intently, and that'll cause you to look around. The first one we saw, we were kids. The first one we saw when we were kids was way up high in the trees, hanging onto a tree trunk watching us. This is in the city, and it was a hot summer night, and it had to be after 1 a.m. There was 4 of us, and we ranged in age from 10 to 14. And I could feel something staring at us, and I looked to where it came from, and I could see a shimmer up in the tree, just like that predator thing in the movie. If you ever run into one of these things and want to see one, you got to look for the outline against the background. Then you'll see it right away. There it was, hanging onto the tree trunk, way up an old elm tree, about 40 feet up. It had been watching us for quite some time. I said to everyone else, "Hey, what's that thing up in the trees? Look, right up there." Everyone looks and couldn't see it at first, and I said, "No, look harder, it's right there." Then they saw it. It was like a shimmer thing, but it was big. We had all sat up to look at it, some of us pointed at it, and the next thing we knew, we were all laying flat on our backs in the dirt with the wind knocked out of us. When it saw us, it got inside our heads individually and gave each one of us the most terrifying experience that we thought was real. I felt I was hurtling from the black void of outer space to Earth, and I was going to die. I can't tell you how real this experience was. I prepared to die. There was no way out of death. I couldn't even scream. Only later I found out everyone had a different experience. My girlfriend felt that she was underwater drowning, dying, and couldn't get to the surface. Everyone had a different and separate terrifying experience from this being, and everyone was terrified. This was over 50 years ago. I'm in my 60s now, and this happened with 4 separate individuals who could all be tracked down. We've lost touch, but everyone can be found, and the story can be 100% authenticated. It stands out as the most terrifying moment of my life. I was 100% sure I was going to die, and it happened so fast. We all came to flat on our backs, scared to death, and just shut up and went home. We all came to flat on our backs, scared to death, and just shut up and went home. On no uncertain terms, this thing let us know, if you F with me, I'm going to F you back so hard you'll never recover. You'll be dead. I will own you. I will control your awareness, and you'll never find your way back. That was the feeling. There's no denying this message. It got into each one of our heads, took over our awareness, and controlled what we were witnessing individually and separately, and all at the same time. How do you fight something like that? It did look like a man, but bigger. We never saw anything solid, but the outline was 100% like a human, but about 2 feet taller and thicker than a normal man. Thicker than a normal human. And it seems to really like the trees up high. It could glide through the trees, and it's super fast. And it was gone in a heartbeat. I don't want people to know my name, but if you want to ask any questions, no problem. It did scare everyone literally nearly to death. Anyone we ever told about this laughed at us and said we were full of it. But we were kids, and back then nobody listened to kids. Yeah, they still don't. We were not exactly given a lot of parental supervision also. I think that thing knew this, and knew it could get away with scaring us because our parents wouldn't care. Anyway, when I heard you say these things must be terrified of us, nope. These things can absolutely control us. If they control your awareness, they control you. They're smart, they're fast, they know how to manipulate awareness on multiple levels, and I think perhaps they would be afraid of being hunted. But of course, if nobody believes they exist, there's no chance of that. If people knew what they could really do, everybody would be up in arms. Maybe that's what they're afraid of. They're smart, they're crafty, and they've been watching us for a very long time, and they've gotten away with it, undetected for decades at the very least. If they want to F with anybody, they certainly have the ability to do that. They're after something, and they don't want to get caught. Whatever it is, it sure taught us a lesson. The feeling we got is they could do anything to us because they could control our awareness, and there is no way to distinguish it from actual reality. What kind of thing has that ability? What are they really doing here, and why are they watching us? You don't have to go to the wilderness to find them. They're in the cities. They're probably everywhere. Anyway, I hope you find this interesting. It's 100% the truth and can be corroborated by 3 others. The only thing they're afraid of is being found out. I wasn't ever going to write you, but this time I just had to. The only thing they're afraid of is people finding out what they really are and what they're capable of. Sue from St. Paul. Holy. That is a doozy, Sue. I appreciate that email, and I'm so sorry you had the living daylight scared out of you like that. And right away, I started thinking about that guy that I saw in that interview, that he was definitely a broken man, a mess, describing sitting in that chair, bawling his eyes out, being pinned and couldn't move from some kind of being that basically told him he's the prey and this is the game, and we're here to hunt you, or whatever it was. The message was it wasn't good. I feel like you say, what'd you say in the end here? Hold on a minute. The only thing they're afraid of is people finding out what they really are. But if we did, okay, let's just say discussing, right? We're at the same coffee table. We're all friends and family here. I'm just saying, all right, why would they be afraid? It sounds like nothing can harm them. I don't understand why that might be a fright. Afraid that we'll find out what they really are and what they're really capable of. I don't know, I'm thinking more like the fright would be on our end of that table, don't you think? I'm sure a lot of people are jumping up and down screaming at the screen, Nephilim, however you want to pronounce it. When you get emails like this, it sure fits that description, doesn't it? So creepy. Holy, this is a long one. Long one. All right, I'm going in. Going in. Excuse me. Howdy, Steve. A couple years ago, YouTube suggested your channel, and I subscribed. I'm glad I did. Little did I know how much I would need your help. Oh? 2019, I was invited to camp at large campground with my sister-in-law. She and my brother have a 40-foot camper that makes one feel like they're on vacation in a rustic, wooded, swampy setting. Throughout the summer, my sister-in-law would come back to the camper after work, but towards the middle of October, I spent many days alone. The campground slowly emptied as the end of the season came to a close, and as a result, I became the only person in this large campground. I like to be alone, so the thought of being there by myself was relaxing. The following is the first incident that didn't make any sense. Also, all of the night occurrences happened between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Like I said yesterday, I think, why is that? Why at nighttime mostly? In August around 10 p.m., my sister-in-law, her sister, and I were walking back from the lake. Her sister suddenly became so frightened because she couldn't see the light on the light pole that panic set in and she refused to move forward. We assured her it was safe and we'd be right beside her. Eventually, she was able to calm herself and we were able to get her back to the camper. And she's never acted out that way. Early in 2020, she and I spoke about what had happened in 2019 in more detail. She said that she had an uneasy feeling of being watched since leaving the lake, that the feeling was coming from the woods to the left of and behind us. I'd written a short account of what happened to me in the fall of 2019 to someone that you know, but did not receive a response. I understand how inundated he could be. What I wrote him was lacking in details, so here's my updated story. In 2019, my dog is a red heeler and devoted to me so much that he can be quite a pain in my butt. He and I would go for walks during all hours of the day and night, in and out of the woods. And a few nights before things started to get weird, the manager of the campground caught up with me as I metal detected down by the lake. It was raining. We walked back to my camper, where I picked up an umbrella, then walked her back to her camper. I felt uneasy, especially on my way back with my dog. The next day, both she and my sister-in-law left, which left me alone for a week. It continued to rain. The following night, around 11 to 2:30, the dog started growling, got up and laid beside me. He would not leave my side. The next night, a huge, and I mean huge, slam hit the top of the camper. And it was so loud that I thought a limb from the tree had fallen on us. There were several objects hitting the side of the camper as well. I just assumed the smaller objects hitting the sides was due to the wind blowing acorns. Thinking back, there was no wind, just rain. The next morning, I looked for the limb. There was nothing. The next night, Buddy, my dog, and I went for our nightly walk, and it was around 10:30. And on our way back, we were about 120 feet away from the camper when he stopped and looked up at me. I said something to him, then started forward. He stopped again, looking up at me. I again said something as we started towards the camper. After the next few steps, as he kept looking up at me, I was suddenly overwhelmed with a sense of fear so intense that I felt terrified to move. The woods became so loud with absolute quiet. The camper was about 60 feet away. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that where my fear was coming from was just inside the edge of the woods, about 20 feet past the camper. I could pinpoint the exact spot where the fear was coming from without being able to see through the darkness. I couldn't go backwards because there was no one to run to. I had no choice but to walk towards what was terrifying me. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done, trying to overcome the mind-numbing fear in order to just get to safety. And as I got closer, the terrified feelings intensified to the point where I started shaking. I felt like I couldn't get in the camper fast enough, but I did, and immediately locked the door, closed all the blinds, then covered the edge of the blinds with towels so that no one could see inside. I thought maybe it was the two men that never got caught who robbed the gas station a couple months earlier. The dog wanted to go outside a few hours later. I have to be honest here, I thought he can pee on the floor. I'm not going out there again, but I did. I could barely make myself open the door. And when the door opened, that terrifying feeling overwhelmed me again. We went outside together. I couldn't go any further than 4 feet from the door. I called Buddy, the dog, as he was only a few feet away and went up the stairs backwards. A few days later, Buddy and I took a walk into the woods, came back to the campground via the road, and as we meandered down the road, I heard a loud crack. About 50 yards ahead of me, a 40-foot dead tree came crashing down onto the road. During the summer, as my sister-in-law and I were sitting by the campfire, an owl started to hoot. She commented on how she hasn't heard one in a while. Now, Bigfoot was never a thought until the following spring when I started watching your channel. The letters you were reading made my blood run cold. Even though they're uncanny coincidences, I wasn't able to believe what I had experienced was a Bigfoot. That happens to other people, not me. June 2020. It took me a few months to be able to go back camping again. I told my sister-in-law what had happened the previous year, and what I had learned from watching your channel was maybe what happened to me. She listened, but I knew she didn't believe there could be a Bigfoot. I was adamant that she not let her small grandchildren walk alone at night. I told her that if she heard children in the woods, not to go looking for them. because I couldn't stop talking about what had happened, how I was so fearful of going into the woods or being outside after dark. She started listening to your channel. I used to be so comfortable in the woods that my niece joked that if there were to be a zombie infestation, they were all hanging with me. We heard an owl again coming from the same place as last year, close to the camper. The first hoot sounded normal. The second hoot sounded loud, raspy with a lower tone than the first. And a couple days later, around 9:30 a.m., I went outside to light a fire. I heard what sounded like two pieces of wood being hit together, only one knock coming from about 300 feet inside the woods. And I identified the sound by what people had said that they had heard on your channel. Immediately I went into the camper, and as I shut the door, something small hit underneath the window. For a week in the mornings, the same wood knock happened. It's now late September. The campground's emptying. 3 of us were sitting around the campfire when we heard a small bird off to the right. A few minutes later, the bird had moved in front of me, still in the woods. My sister-in-law went inside to make a phone call. Another few minutes passed, and I again heard the bird, but this time it felt like it was about 20 feet away and to my left. I asked a friend beside me if she wanted to go in. She said no. I felt something strongly telling me to go inside, and I did. The following weeks, my 17-year-old neighbor would sit around the campfire with me, and I asked him if he had heard unusual sounds at night, and he said one night around 11 p.m. he unzipped his tent when he heard this terrible sound like a raccoon being killed right outside his tent. Another time he heard from far away what sounded like a mother yelling at children to quiet down. The camper felt like he was being nudged softly every night. Wondering if it was my imagination, I watched my drink to see that the liquid did gently move. Sitting around the campfire, I heard footsteps right behind us as we sat talking. I didn't say a thing. The dog and the neighbor didn't react at all. And I asked a store clerk that said she lived close to the campground if she had ever heard noises at night, and she said she had when she took her dog out around 11 p.m. It was a bobcat, and not to go into the woods. Later on, I showed her the pictures that I took of the footprints. She looked at them in disbelief. I saw structures of trees and saplings broken, bent and crossed across each other just outside the camper entrance. As well, a poorly constructed stocked wooden blinds in the woods that looked right into the campsites on the other side of the campground. In the woods and in our campsite, there are trees jammed into the ground with no roots. Some trees with the tops going into the ground. Small saplings bent towards each other, creating a canopy. Sticks and small branches manipulated together hanging from trees. Other trees just snapped off 8 to 10 feet up. Still, I don't want to believe. Some smaller saplings were cut down near the edge of the road on our campsite. I got tired of stepping on them, so one day I dug them up and then raked the ground smooth. The next morning, there was one large footprint about 15 inches long. I said to myself, no way. I showed my sister-in-law when she arrived from work, and I asked her if she believed now. She said it kind of confirms that they are real, so I repeated the raking. The next morning, there were footprints of 3 sizes. The following morning, there were a lot of footprints in the dirt, as well as up beside the camper. It was then when I totally accepted the fact that Sasquatch were around. The footprints consisted of a smaller print, about 9 inches long, another measuring approximately 15 inches long, and yet another that measured 19 inches long, which had a space between the ball and the heel of the foot. And after admitting to myself that they were real, the following day I took the dog for a walk into the woods, and approximately 300 feet in, I distinctly heard in my mind, quote, "See, you don't have to be afraid," end quote. Thinking, what the hell? I continued to walk. Following the road/path, the dog and I took a left turn into a large part of the woods that had been clear-cut that spring. There were many 100-plus-year-old trees that had been removed, specifically 4 on each side of the path. On each stump, there were 2 acorns and a single stem. In the last week, the clear-cut looked like it was being prepared for hunting since older deer trails had been blocked by freshly broken or bent limbs. Trees. There were smaller piles of brush built around or near the newly created trails. One thing that stood out like a sore thumb was a huge tree placed across two broken off upright trees to form something that looked like the letter H. I felt uncomfortable to finish the long walk through the shaded woods, so I turned around, heading back to the camper. 2 nights later, as I was drifting off to sleep, 4 piercing, sharp, clear, crisp, extremely high-pitched shrieking screams tore through the night. I didn't feel the energy of the scream like others have described. This shrieking scream filled the air, leaving no room for any other sound. I remember you referencing a scream as to a man getting his balls ripped off. That was about as close to the description I've heard. Or the scream made me think of the type of noise an animal would make as it was slowly being killed. The next morning I asked my sister-in-law if she had heard the scream, and I looked at her in shock when she said no. And lastly, as she and I were preparing to leave, I happened to glance across the edge of the woods and saw a small, freshly snapped branch about 7 feet up. It seems to me that once I acknowledged that they were around, there was little effort to hide their existence. Yeah, that's definitely a pattern there too. I do have one question that maybe you could help with. Since every year more evidence of their presence has been shown, do you think next year will be worse? Maybe someone you have spoken with may have some insight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your personal dedication towards this subject. Thank you for allowing the subject and your no-nonsense platform to be seen and used by anyone. But most of all, I want to thank you for your support by encouraging courage to face something that is so messed up. That what I have experienced is real, and I'm not crazy. You're a good man, Leanne. You're a good woman, Leanne. Good honest woman. Lady. Member. Sister. I appreciate that email. That's quite a handful. There sure is a lot of different messages, isn't there? It's like the cloaked thing in the trees, being aggressive and psychologically completely screwing with someone. And now you got these other beings who just might be a different flavor saying, see, you don't gotta be afraid. How confusing is that? That's like screwing up a human brain 101. Which one is it? You know what I mean? And which one dominates the other? Which one respects the other more or less? That's a good one. That's one I'm wondering what's going on there. Because obviously there's more. Something's going on. There's more than just one being out there. I'd bet the farm on that one. Don't you think? We've had, how many times we have these like family-oriented groups of beings that seem just curious and want to hang out and go do their thing, and then you got these other demon-like entities that just want to get across to us that they hate us big time. You know? It's pretty alarming. I don't know what I'd do if I ran into one of these cloak things and started giving me that kind of attitude. I'd probably start shooting. Right? Just because, you know, what I've done for a living for numerous years, when you come across something big and powerful in my world, and it gets across clearly that it hates you and it could kill you at any time it felt like it, and I'm in the middle of nowhere and I can't jump and I can't escape, there's going to be lead flying. There's going to be big, powerful lead flying, without a doubt. Who knows what would happen? I don't know what would happen. I got a 300 short mag I usually pack around right now. I wonder what that would do to one of those aggressive, angry, hate-filled, cloaked beings in the trees. Creepy. But anyway, I'm thinking I should keep the GoPro going for the ride home, and then you guys can see I screwed up with the 360 camera when I left to come over this way, because you have to edit on your phone. And to try to put together a whole 1 hour of edit off that thing would take for frickin' ever. But the GoPro's easy. I just take the chip out, put it in the laptop, load her up. So I'll probably do that tomorrow. I'm going to take you guys on a full-length trip from one end of the province back to south to the coast. How's that sound? And as long as I stay safe, I'll be back tomorrow. So if you got something you want to share with the people through me, you can do it at sharemystory@howtohunt.com. All right? And again, super stoked, day 2. Sarah's cookbook is live. And I will have a link for that at the end of this video if you What great Christmas gift. Friend of mine owns a hunting store in town at home, and he messaged me, hey, get a bunch of Sarah's books for the hunting store. Those are solid Christmas gifts. I'm like, okay, I'll tell her. Thanks. Never thought of that, but yep, I guess it's true, isn't it? I can't wait to get home and see it and see her. I'll be back tomorrow, you guys. Appreciate it, everyone. Be safe.